Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, normally this time of year, you would think that I would be working on the corn planter, which is right there behind that tractor, and you've seen videos on that, and or the bean planter, which is sitting right back there behind the big sprayer. Well, sure enough, I've got pretty much all my projects and things that I needed to do on those all done. And we keep having this cool, rainy weather. I would like to actually run water through that big sprayer, but I gotta watch with the cool nights that we're still having. I don't want something to freeze up and bust. And so, what are we doing today? Well, that's right. I'm getting a jump start on fall harvest projects. But I'm actually working, like I say, since I can't work on anything else, it's probably in the upper 30s, close to 40 right now. I need to power wash some radiators on our 4 main tractors, but I can tell you one thing, I'm not going to be out power washing when it's in the upper 30s, forget that. So, I'm working on the combine. And as you can see, this here's a Gleaner R52. And before I show you what I'm actually working on, I'll just tell you a little bit about this one, because I know I've got videos. In fact, I actually have about a 17-part video that or actually 17 series, I guess you could call it, however you want to do it, 17 parts of a video setup that I did regarding well, you can sort of see it way back there in the corner on our R72. I got a hole in the rotor cage, and I got that all fixed back up back in the winter. But I don't think I've showed this one here on video that I remember. And this one here is a 1993 Class 5 machine. And we have actually had this one here. My dad and his uncle, which I guess would be my great uncle, bought this machine back in 1995. And it was actually used as a demonstrator by AGCO. And so, like I say, it's a 1993, and so AGCO used it for about 2 years as a demo machine before a local dealership got it and put it up for sale. And so my dad and his uncle bought this thing back in 1995. And this one here has the Deutz air-cooled motor, because for those few years there after AGCO was formed, they still had it to where you could get the Deutz motor, and or I think they had it to where you could get either the Deutz air-cooled and or the Cummins engine, which in the long run, the Cummins would actually hold up a lot longer. And the main reason for that is most guys on these air-cooled motors would not clean them out. They just get in and run the thing and never think to take an air gun to it. And so it would overheat. And that's how you'd end up having engine trouble. Well, I'll show you here right quick, and right there it is. 6-cylinder. Now on the R62 and R72, they had an air-cooled Deutz V8 motor, and actually trying to clean those out was even harder. These here aren't actually too bad, because you can just take this panel here off and this panel here off. Well, it's hard to hold my phone and get all these out of here. There we go. I don't know how well you can see down, not too well anyway. I forgot to grab my light. It's kind of hard to see back in there. But each individual cylinder jug, I guess you could call it, looks just like a regular Harley Davidson motorcycle. You know how each jug is just surrounded by cooling fins. Well, that's what each one of these here have. It just has 6 individual jugs with cooling fins all the way around it. Now, fuel efficiency, these things are very fuel efficient. Okay, let me put you back in my camera holder, that way I can use both hands. But like I say, that was the biggest problem with these air-cooled motors, and I think it might have been long about maybe 1994 or maybe 1995 at the latest that they stopped running the Deutz air-cooled motor for that reason. Because like I say, most guys didn't clean them out, and a lot of people, I actually have a neighbor who is just like this. They run stuff until it breaks down, never doing any kind of preventive maintenance. They just run it until it breaks down and then complain because it broke down. Well, it's it's their own fault because they never kept anything up. And so in that case, I don't exactly feel too sorry for them. But that's a little bit on this R52. We run a 20-foot bean head on it. And actually on this machine here, the last time it ran corn would have been the fall of 2017. Because in 2018 is when my dad and I bought that R72. And now that is our main corn machine. We use that for corn. And now for beans, like I say, we have a 20-foot bean head for this, and we do run this one in beans. And but like I say, the last year for corn on this one here was in 2017. Because now on that 72, I got an 8-row head on it, and it can run circles around. Well, I guess I should explain. Before we got that 72, we had another R52, and it was a 1996. And we ran 2 6-row heads. Well, for manpower and stuff like that, my dad and I just got talking about how it'd be nice to have one big machine for corn. That way it takes less manpower and we get more done. And I can tell you one thing, running one 8-row head on that 72 along with the grain cart, we can run circles around 2 R52 combines and 2 6-row heads. We can just get a whole lot more done at that big 72 and an 8-row head. So that's a little history on this machine. And like I say, that second R52, we sold that one, I think it was about a year or so after we got that 72. And so let me show you here what I'm working on this thing. Back last fall, we were having trouble with the feeder house here, these slat bars, wanting to catch, you can sort of see it right here, on that little piece of an angle right there. Let me get this light in here, kind of see. And you can see that right there a little bit. And the reason why, in 2019, on the R72, I installed a feeder floor kit back here at the back of the throat into the floor of it. And what it did was it opened it up, because from the factory, I don't know why, it was pretty dumb on AGCO's part, they had put like a big hump in the floor right above the hydro, and at the bottom of the upper, it's got two of these feeder house chains. You got the lower feeder house that sits here in the throat. You have the upper feeder house that runs from approximately the back part of the throat here on up to the rotor. Well, beneath that lower, beneath the lower drum of the upper feeder house chain, that floor right there had like a hump in it going over top of the hydro, and that created a choke point. And for years, we always had trouble with this machine here, and also on our 1996 R52, wanting to plug in the throat. Once we got, when we got that R72 in 2018, the first year we had it, I'm trying to look something up here. The first year we had it, we had the same thing, plugging in the throat, because I'm running a 35-foot head on it. And so our local AGCO Gleaner dealer, the guy told me about this, right here it is, that feeder floor kit modification. And so in 2019, in fact, I think it was in the winter of 2019, I took the throat all off, and since I had never done one, because it's kind of a one-shot deal, once you cut the old out, there's no going back. And so I took the throat all off, got everything all opened up, and one day, I had that mechanic come over and help me put that floor, the new floor kit, into it. And what that did was it took that hump out that was there above the hydro and just made it a simple, it goes in, then angles up toward the rotor. And it also lowers the back of the throat floor itself down a little bit. Not much, but any little bit makes a big improvement. And so in the fall of 2019, let me tell you something. That combine was about like a new machine, especially with green stem soybeans. And so after that fall, and before the fall of 2020, well, fall harvest of 2020, I called that place up there in North Dakota and ordered a feeder floor kit for this machine. And like my dad and I have talked about, we wish we would have known about that 20 years ago, because it made this machine a new machine. I mean, you can still plug, and you're getting green stem beans. I mean, regardless, green stem beans are like cutting rope. However, it just made such a big difference, because, I mean, you'll plug occasionally, but not a lot. Well, when I installed that kit up here on the front, here on the feeder, you can kind of see it right here behind that. I guess I should have taken this panel here off. You know what, I'll just do that way you can see. There we are. You see those blocks? That is what holds this feeder house chain in place. Now, this block setup is the old style setup. I think it was after 1996 that Gleaner actually made a modification. And instead of having this block here, because see, they have it to where you can take and turn this block back and forth between beans and corn, and what that does, it just allows more floating up and down of the feeder house chain. Well, on this one here, on these older styles, you gotta kind of pinch that in there just enough to where this block can kind of slide back and forth between these plastic tabs right here. Otherwise, it'll want to flop and break out this housing. And we've actually had that happen on this machine. We've had to take and... Oh, sorry about that. I thought I heard somebody drive in beside the shed. We've had to take and weld up the housing here. On the, I think it was after 96, what they started doing was they started mounting like a small shock absorber right here because the R72 has it. And what that does is it lets you keep these blocks, and it keeps them, it allows gap between the top of the block and this plastic tab. And that way the drum can float up as crop material goes in. However, with that shock absorber, it can't sit there and bounce. Like I say, with this one right here, with this older setup, you just gotta kind of shim that up to where all you have is just a simple, any kind of movement back and forth by the spring tensioner. That's all you want. You don't want bouncing up and down because that's what can cause you to break out right here. Well, when I redid those blocks, I cut about a 1/2 inch off the block and off the top and moved it to the bottom. That way it would just keep the drum in an up position all the time. That way you got plenty of clearance underneath here. And you can see there's quite a bit. Well, it just, by doing that, it just barely misses right here. Last fall, we were having just a little bit of trouble. Every now and then, one of these slat bars off this feeder house would want to catch right there. And it'd actually bend the bar. We'd had to take it off, put it into the press it back out flat, and take off going again. And so, what I need to do is I'm going to take my plasma cutter, and right there, just take and just plasma just a little bit, not much, and just basically just kind of open that up right there just a little bit. And so that's my project I'm working on today. Like I say, it's kind of odd to be working on the combine at the beginning of April, but hey, I'm kind of weird when it comes to that anyway. It's nothing new for me to be working on either the combine coming into springtime and or after fall harvest, when we get kind of slowed back down. I will actually start working on planter projects. And so this is nothing new for me, and I'm guessing there's probably a few guys out there like that get a jump start on everything. And so that's just looking back up in there into the feeder house. I don't know how well you can see that. So I'm going to take and in this video, I'm just going to call this part 1. And we'll be back with part 2. And I'm going to see, I'm not sure how well it will pick up, trying to actually plasma this out. I don't want to actually damage the lens on my phone, but the plasma cutter is not like the welder. You have bright light, but it's not near as bright as what the welder does. And so, like I say, we'll call this part 1. We'll be back here in a little bit with part 2. Take care.